Hunger. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled within the depths of a sinister forest, a couple found themselves blessed with a child after years of longing. The baby boy, who they named Oliver, brought joy and hope to their lives. However, their happiness was short-lived, for he was born minuscule and feeble, barely larger than a teacup. From the moment of his birth, Oliver possessed an insatiable appetite unlike any the world had seen. His hunger knew no bounds, as if an ancient curse had bound him to a ceaseless and tormenting desire for sustenance. No matter how much he ate, his emaciated frame remained gaunt, a mere vessel for his bottomless hunger. His parents, weary and desperate, struggled to provide for Oliver's ravenous cravings. Day after day, they scoured the barren fields, hoping to find even the smallest morsel to ease their son's insatiable cravings. As Oliver grew, so did the darkness that engulfed his soul. His hunger gnawed at his sanity, transforming him into a creature driven solely by his insatiable desires. Once Oliver went out to play with his friends. Among them was Thomas, a friend who had brought his younger sister, Emily, along to join in the day's festivities. With eager anticipation, they decided to play hide and seek, a game that always brought excitement and adventure. Oliver's heart raced as they counted to 10, his mind racing with the perfect hiding spot. Meanwhile, Emily, being the seeker, covered her eyes and began the hunt. Oliver, fueled by a mix of excitement and concern for his insatiable hunger, chose a hiding place in the shadows of an old, dilapidated building. It provided the seclusion he needed, but also served as a constant reminder of the darkness that dwelled within him. As the children scattered to their chosen spots, Oliver found himself torn between the thrill of the game and the ever-present hunger that gnawed at his insides. Minutes turned into moments of anticipation as Oliver waited, his senses heightened for Emily's approach. The sound of her footsteps grew closer, echoing through the air, but suddenly, a branch snapped under her small foot, alerting Oliver to her presence. Realizing he had been discovered, Oliver's hunger, now a malevolent force urging him onward, drove him to perform the unthinkable. He pulled Emily closer and grabbed her by the neck, both hands around her neck, and pushed so that not a single word escaped Emily's lips. All of a sudden, he felt a strange crack under his hands. Then she fainted and crumpled to the floor. He took her shoes off and started to swallow her like he was a snake swallowing a mouse. The taste was a symphony of flavors, rich and savory. Each bite filled his senses with a twisted ecstasy, as if he were consuming more than just flesh and bone. She slid down his throat, leaving behind a trail of perverse satisfaction. As Oliver's belly expanded, grotesque and distended, it strained against the confines of his taut skin. The once flat surface now protrudes outward, stretching to accommodate the excessive indulgence. His belly grew larger and larger, an unsettling testament to his insatiable hunger. It resembled a monstrous mound, an abomination that defied the laws of nature. Oliver's eyes widened in disbelief as the sensation of fullness enveloped him. It was a revelation, a respite from the perpetual torment of his insatiable appetite. The monstrous mound that had haunted him for so long dissipated, replaced by a feeling of contentment that resonated deep within his being. He savored the moment, relishing in the absence of his usual torment. For the first time in his life, he could focus on something other than his hunger. Minutes turned into an eternity as Thomas waited, his mind flooded with conflicting emotions. He promised to take care of his little sister. He emerged from his hiding spot and started to call his sister's name, but she was nowhere to be found. Other kids joined him, their joyful playfulness overshadowed by worry and concern. Panic surged through Thomas's veins as he frantically searched the surrounding area, his heart pounding in his chest. As the children stumbled upon Oliver, his belly swollen and distended, a mixture of confusion, fear, and concern filled their young hearts. The sight of his bloated abdomen was unsettling, an eerie testament to the depths of his insatiable hunger. Their voices hushed. The children gathered around Oliver, their eyes fixated on his grotesquely enlarged belly. Whispers of disbelief and speculation filled the air, their imaginations conjuring sinister tales of what could have transpired. Amidst the growing unease, a realization struck the children like a bolt of lightning. Those are Emily's shoes laying next to Oliver. Panic gripped their young souls as they connected the dots, fearing the worst. Their joyous game of hide and seek had morphed into a haunting reality, and their friend's absence now carried a foreboding weight. Oliver, acutely aware of the fear and suspicion directed his way, tried to convey his innocence. He stammered, his words stumbling over one another as he struggled to explain that Emily's disappearance had nothing to do with his inflated belly. But his pleas were met with skepticism and accusatory glances.
"She gave me the shoes to look after them because she did not want to make them dirty,"
he said. As the children's suspicions grew and their concern for Emily deepened, they realized the gravity of the situation called for the intervention of the adult. Fear and urgency drove them to seek help, and they ran towards the nearest adults they could find, their voices filled with desperation and alarm. Their words spilled out in a flurry, recounting the disappearance of Emily and the unsettling truth they had uncovered about Oliver. The adults, startled by the children's urgency, gathered to listen, their expressions turning grave as they comprehend the severity of the situation. As the children pleaded for action, their eyes darted anxiously towards Oliver, who stood frozen in fear. Panic gripped his heart, and in a desperate bid to escape the mounting accusations, he turned and fled towards the sanctuary of the forest. The children's cries of warning chased after Oliver, their voices echoing through the air. But he disappeared into the dense foliage, swallowed by the darkness of the towering trees. The forest welcomed him with its forbidding embrace, its twisted paths concealing his presence from the searching eyes of the adults and his former friends. Despite the relentless efforts of the search parties, Oliver remained elusive, seemingly swallowed by the depths of the foreboding forest. The days turned into weeks, and still there was no trace of him. The village became consumed by a mix of fear, uncertainty, and a lingering sense of unfinished business. Deep within the heart of the sinister forest, Oliver stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cottage. Its weathered exterior stood as a testament to time's unyielding march, its windows cracked and its roof sagging under the weight of neglect. The air around the cottage carried an eerie stillness, as if the very essence of the forest had seeped into its walls. Curiosity mingled with desperation, compelling Oliver to venture closer. As he cautiously pushed open the creaking door, a gust of musty air enveloped him, mingling with the scent of decaying wood. The interior was dimly lit, the feeble rays of sunlight struggling to pierce through the dense foliage that encroached upon the cottage. Inside, Oliver discovered signs of previous habitation. Tattered remnants of furniture lay strewn about, their once vibrant colors faded to dull shades of gray. Dust particles danced in the beams of light that managed to breach the darkness, creating an ethereal atmosphere that heightened his sense of isolation. He noticed a makeshift bed nestled in the corner, its threadbare sheets offering little comfort. The room seemed untouched by time, frozen in a melancholic existence. It was as if the cottage itself had become a sanctuary for forgotten souls, those seeking solace amidst the labyrinthine terrors of the forest. Oliver's weary body yearned for respite, for a place to rest and digest. The cottage, with its eerie charm, seemed to offer a temporary refuge. And so, he gingerly settled upon the worn bed, surrendering to the weariness that tugged at his eyelids. In the days that followed, Oliver found solace within the walls of the cottage. His hunger remained extinguished for quite some time. Once the young girl's body was fully digested, the hunger inside Oliver became relentless once again. It gnawed at his insides, an insidious force that consumed his thoughts and weakened his resolve. As the days grew shorter and the forest's embrace tightened around him, Oliver's desperation deepened. The meager scraps he scavenged from the lumberjack camp were no longer enough to satiate his voracious appetite. Oliver, driven by his insatiable hunger and the yearning for human connection, cautiously ventured into a campsite nestled deep within the haunting forest. The crackling fire illuminated the faces of those gathered around, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mirror the turmoil within Oliver's own soul. Amidst the campsite, Oliver's eyes fell upon a young boy, accompanied by his hunter father. The child's innocent laughter filled the air, a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere that cloaked Oliver's presence. The flickering flame seemed to cast an ethereal glow upon the boy's face, emphasizing the purity and vitality that exuded from him. Oliver, his grotesque form hidden in the shadows, watched the pair with a mixture of longing and desperation. The sight of the child's joy, so unburdened by the darkness that consumed Oliver, stirred a pang of yearning deep within his fractured heart. The twisted hunger that plagued him intensified, focusing its insidious desires on the life that radiated from the innocent boy. As the hunter father attended to his duties, his focus fixated on preparing their camp for the night's rest, Oliver's hunger swelled. It gnawed at him, urging him to quench its insatiable thirst with a taste of the child's vitality. A battle raged within him, a war between his monstrous instincts and the remnants of his humanity. Oliver waited for the father to fall asleep so he could crawl closer to take the boy and extinguish his tormenting hunger. As Oliver inched closer, his heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, he observed the child's peaceful slumber. The boy's innocent face, relaxed and serene in the embrace of dreams, stirred a flicker of emotion within Oliver's tormented soul. It was a bittersweet sight, a reminder of the purity he had lost and the darkness that now enveloped him, but the hunger for flesh was stronger. He acted carefully because the father slept on the other side of the fire, facing his son. Oliver, crawling closer to the sleeping child, widely opening his mouth to begin feasting. As he placed his hand over the boy's mouth, the little boy yelped and his father woke up.
Suddenly, Oliver felt a searing pain erupt in his chest.
Startled, he looked down to see a dark stain spreading across his tattered shirt. The echo of a gunshot reverberated through the night, shattering the fragile peace of the forest. In a panic, Oliver's instinct for self-preservation kicked in. He clutched his wounded chest, his grotesque form convulsing with pain, and frantically retreated from the scene. The scent of his own blood filled the air, mixing with the damp earth as he stumbled back towards his desolate cottage. Oliver, clutching his wounded chest, managed to drag his weakened body back into the sanctuary of his cottage. The pain intensified with each passing moment, consuming his thoughts and blurring his vision. With a final burst of determination, he reached his bed and collapsed onto it, gasping for breath. His fragile lungs were pierced by the bullet, causing blood to spurt from his chest with each desperate breath. Gasping for air, he felt the warmth of his life force trickling down his throat, filling his mouth with a metallic taste. Every inhale was a struggle as his damaged lungs fought against the rising tide of blood. Fear and panic gripped Oliver as he realized the severity of his wound. The pain radiated through his body, intensifying with each passing moment. Weakness consumed him, threatening to drag him into the depths of unconsciousness. As Oliver lay there, the air in the room grew heavy with a sense of impending finality. His breathing became shallower, each inhalation a struggle against his failing lungs. The weight of his choices and the consequences of his actions bore down upon him, mingling with the agony of his wounded body. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on the walls, casting a surreal glow upon Oliver's pale and contorted face. The once vibrant spark of life within him dimmed with each passing second, extinguishing like a dying ember. His eyes, filled with a mix of pain and regret, stared into the abyss of his own mortality. Outside, the sinister forest seemed to echo his fate, its rustling leaves whispering a haunting lament. It knew of the darkness that had consumed Oliver, the insatiable hunger that had driven him to this point. The twisted trees loomed as silent witnesses, their branches reaching towards the heavens as if beckoning his soul to depart. In the solitude of his cottage, Oliver's life force slowly waned. His breath grew shallower, the rasping sounds a soundtrack to his final moments. Memories flashed before his eyes of his desperate quest for satiation, of the lives he had crossed paths with and forever altered. As the minutes stretched into eternity, Oliver's body grew cold, his heartbeat fading into oblivion. His twisted existence, marked by insatiable hunger and haunting desires, came to an end within the confines of that desolate cottage. And so, Oliver passed from the realm of the living, his final resting place within the very darkness he had embraced. The cottage became a forgotten tomb, a shrine to his tormented existence. The village whispered tales of the always hungry boy who met his tragic demise, a cautionary tale of the consequences of surrendering to one's darkest cravings.